Together, we work as one for better LGBTIQ lives. Outright.
Without further ado, let's welcome our speaker, Outright International's board member, Kathy Teo, accompanied by Chief Marketing Officer, remarkably, Mario.
And warm welcome to everyone who's joining us on this Out Summit session. This session is called Creating a New Story, an inside look at how we rebranded Outright to better serve our community. My name is Kathy Teo. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm joining you from Singapore, where I'm based, and I'm really proud to be representing as a board director of Outright International. With me is Mario Wuttenhaler, who is the co-founder and chief marketing officer at Remarkably, the branding consultancy that Outright has partnered with this year for our rebranding work. And Mario is joining us from the UK, where he is based. We're hoping that with this session, we can share a behind the scenes look at how we did this rebrand, some of the lessons that we learned. And the goal of the session really is to give activists the takeaways about the best practices and how they can elevate their own messaging and amplify their own communications for their organizations. Just a bit of context. So this year, Outright just turned 32 years old, and historically, just prior to 2015, Outright was known as International Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission, or IGLHRC, just before rebranding to Outright Action International. So most of you attending Out Summit might have noticed that we've recently rebranded as Outright International. And while we've dropped the word action from our name to simplify our brand, Outright's work still focuses on changing the world through action. But we felt very much that we needed to communicate what Outright does, how our work affects LGBTIQ people everywhere, and how different stakeholders from activist groups to policymakers, diplomats, and funders and supporters can actually engage and get involved with the work that we're doing. And that was the main challenge that we were trying to address. So with Mario here today, Mario, I mean, you recall when we started and when we approached Remarkably at the start of this year about the Outright rebrand, as the branding professionals that you are, what do you remember were the clear signs that Outright's brand was actually in need of a refresh at that time?
Well, first of all, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Kathy. Thank you also for inviting me to this talk. We were incredibly privileged and honored to be part of this process. We are, LGBT owned ourselves, so really, really excited to be part of that next chapter of the Outright journey. To answer your question, when we came to Outright and we started looking at, at where you've come from, as you've just explained, which is an incredibly impressive organization, we realized that the last time a brand refresh was done, it was a very different business. It was much smaller, it was lesser known, and it had a smaller variety of causes. The programs, the complexity of programs had increased, and also we felt that looking from the outside in, that the causes and the messages weren't always as clear as they could be. So we felt there was a need to, at the starting point, to clearer communicate what Outright did, how it helped people around the world, but also, and most importantly, how stakeholders could get involved. And from a visual perspective, we felt that the logo mark was quite complex. It couldn't actually be used in all markets. Certain activists couldn't use the rainbow colors, the rainbow mark. So there was definitely a need to look at a brand refresh.
And I mean, with this refresh, and I know that in yesterday's opening session, we had played the brand video. So hopefully the people who are joining us for the session today did have a chance to view the brand video. But also in terms of people who've been following us on social media and on our website, they would have seen a brand refresh. Some of them might even say it's not just a refresh, it's a transformation of how we present the Outright brand. So it wasn't just a logo change. We changed the logo, how we appear visually, creatively across all of our communication channels, both online and offline. We have a new tagline, we have a brand new website, and that's just really part of it, right? So, and having been part of the process, working with your team, Mario, for the last much of 2022, this process was actually very rigorous and intentional. And we know that we are brand guardians for a really well-loved 32-year-old international leading LGBTIQ NGO. Outright is well known among the LGBTIQ activist circles and definitely our long-term supporters and funders, but we've also been going through a period of tremendous growth in the reach and the partnerships that we have across the globe, and the type and the depth of work that we're able to do to help LGBTIQ people. So the methodology that Remarkably team had undertaken with the Outright team, certainly helped us to set on the right course for this rebranding process. But could you talk a little bit perhaps about that also?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that is very important to us when we go into any project, especially when it comes to something as important and as fundamental as a brand project, is to make sure it is informed by insight and by input from the people that are actually actively involved. So what we did is, and actually I was personally heavily involved in this, we interviewed 20 different people. We interviewed donors, we interviewed activists, we interviewed board members, we interviewed the Outright team to get really close to what it is that all these different people felt was working really well with the brand and what wasn't working so well and could be improved. And just to sort of explain some of the things that was felt were working very well, and lots of it was, I think first of all, there was definitely a feeling that Outright is an international organization and a global organization, which is something that we were really excited about. So there was awareness of that. There was definitely a feeling that Outright was there to amplify and was really there to help amplify the message, whether you are an ally, whether you are an activist, or whether you are deeply involved in Outright on a day-to-day basis. Education came up a lot, especially advocacy training, just general support for people that want to get involved, but also credibility. I think credibility was definitely something that was mentioned all the time, whether it was partnerships, whether it was a seat at the UN. So I think it was definitely a feeling of, Outright was credible, did a lot to support its activists and stakeholders, and was very, very much a credible partner. In terms of what wasn't working so well, or where I felt there was improvement possible, I think one of the things was really around awareness, especially within owners, within donors, and people that sort of felt that actually, there could be more awareness of Outright, generally, but also specifically about what Outright does, because you've got so many avenues within Outright where it adds incredible value and it provides direct support. So there was a way of articulating that better. Also, feedback was, is there a way to celebrate more the achievements or the progress? Is there a way to humanize sometimes the language? I think it's about, especially when you're not fully aware of Outright, is there a way to really easily understand what Outright does, how it helps, and how you and me can get involved? So these were sort of just some of the feedback that came back, and there was a lot more that then in aggregate we used to inform the brand work.
Yeah, and that was definitely a really important part of this discovery process, right? As part of the whole rebranding exercise. And you mentioned, that was where we had input into the work and that informed the work. And I remember also we had factored in the fact that we had worked on in the previous year, actually, on a 5-year strategic plan, which also informed the direction and the strategy of what Outright was focusing and doing moving forward. So as with all those points of input, as an output, one of the things that we had was we had a tagline of Together for Better LGBTIQ Lives, Outright. And this was one of the key output, if you will, from the rebranding. I can't say enough how much I love this tagline, and I'm super biased because we worked on it collectively, of course, with between your team as well as our board committee and our marketing and communications team at Outright. I love that this tagline reflects the solidarity of the LGBTIQ movement, of the global LGBTIQ movement. And it reflects that in every part of the world that there are LGBTIQ people and there are LGBTIQ people in every part of the world. We are united in our struggle and in our fight for better, right? Better laws, better acceptance, better livelihoods, better quality of lives. And also punctuating it with Outright, with the emphasis and almost the defiance of a fist in the air. It's a reminder of the role that Outright plays to support and advocate for the LGBTIQ movement. And I remember in our deliberations that we said should we factor in equality as a word that we should have in the tagline, and we said we said the fact is that unfortunately equality seems like a far-fetched reality for LGBTIQ people living in certain countries, and better was actually something that was more achievable, more real, and definitely something that we can actually work towards realizing. Also, as an output from this were the 4 brand pillars that are the foundation of the Outright brand. And the 4 brand pillars are amplify, advocate, support, and celebrate. And perhaps we could explain for the audience what we mean by each of these brand pillars, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the tagline or the purpose is absolutely key, because it really describes in one sentence what Outright is all about. It makes it really easy to understand and is, can be used across the globe. And I think so that's fantastic. Underneath that, then, as you say, Kathy, sit the brand pillars. And they're really there to articulate, again, in really straightforward language, what it is that Outright does and how. I think the first one is amplify. I think we all know what amplify means. I think Outright does an incredible job amplifying and helping to amplify. I think what makes Outright great is that it has access and access to information and understands, the inequalities that happen in the communities around the world, and can therefore help activists and everyone involved to speak out and really help underrepresented communities and being that amplifying factor at a global scale. So that's the first one. The second one is around advocacy. And I think it's all about supporting advocacy, whether that is through education, but also about bringing together, the incredible voices of activists around the world and really help drive collective action. And also, I think with advocacy, it's about, Outright having access to governments, to really powerful people and organizations to drive and enable real change. And I think that's something that's been Outright has been known for from the beginning, is a really important part. The third one is around supporting communities, bringing them together to create, to really enable a global and a local grassroots movement. And being there, support can be around education, it can be around information, but it can also be around direct financial support, for example. So I think the support mechanism is really, really important. And in addition to advice and support, you have counsel, you have research. Outright has incredible research available and makes it available to everybody that wants to get involved. And of course, most recently, a lot of relief and response activities, which are critical and helped so many LGBTIQ people around the world. And the last one, celebrate.
Yes, and that's my favorite. That's my favorite pillar. I think while we're hard at work, with all in working on the other three pillars, it's important to remember to celebrate. And there's a lot of calls for celebration. We celebrate our love, our families, whether they be biological or chosen, our pride, our progress, the resilience of the global LGBTIQ community, and the heartfelt wins that we achieve year on year. We have it's really amazing to see the output from the brand, the rebranding exercise, have these sorts of very simplified outcomes that can really transform the way that we communicate and express our brand and our values to both our internal stakeholders, but also to an external audience, from funders to activists and supporters and diplomats, lawmakers, policymakers around the world. So we have an audience of activists and supporters attending Out Summit this year, and this year is no different. Most of these activists are heading up or working in LGBT nonprofit organizations or grassroots community groups around the world. And what would be some key learnings from Outright's brand refresh that we think they can take away and that can be applied to their own brand's positioning?
So I think, and we talked about it, before. I think at the highest level, it's about having a really clear and concise messaging framework. That, first of all, a really easy to understand purpose that any activist can take to their communities, that really clearly articulates what Outright is all about. But then also within that, activists can pick the different brand pillars and what they mean for them, but also what they mean for their communities in order to support them. And then, of course, there's a whole host of toolkits available to activists that they can use. And I think one of the big things for us was when we created the brand and the logo and the naming was that you had brand assets and a brand framework that you could dial up or dial down depending on what was the best possible use of the brand in your country, in case you had to be softer about the branding, or it could be a lot more overt about the Outright branding and message. I'm sure you've got something to add to that too, Kathy.
Yeah, and I mean, as part of this, and Out Summit is one of the first big events that we've had where we are going to market with our new refreshed brand, if you will. And I've seen the marketing and communications team been very hard at work with very clear brand guidelines and tools, templates, social media toolkits, social media templates, for instance, just to aid with the digital assets and to help with the amplification, one of our pillars of Out Summit. I should add also that one of the key reasons for our success with this brand, and we've had lots of good feedback from various different stakeholders, is that we've worked with a professional branding firm that is LGBTIQ led, that is Remarkably, and Remarkably as an organization, you're also very diverse, very inclusive. So you embrace the value, you eat your own cooking, and you really, as an LGBTIQ led organization, you understand the context, the nuances, the struggles, the aspirations of our community and our movement. And that has really been key to the success of this project. So thank you, Mario, and your partner, Rich, and the whole team at Remarkably, once again, for this partnership and the collaboration. I'm just doing a time check here, but we probably need to move on to the audience Q&A. So perhaps we could just do that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Kathy, for having me. Very, very honored to be part of the Out Summit 2022.
Thank you.
Yes, hi. I'm looking at the Q&A, and we don't have
any open questions at the moment. For those of you who are with us on this session, would there be any questions or feedback that Mario and I perhaps can try to answer? Oh, so we have a question from Daniel Villatoro. Any references on queer design that inspired you, visual references? I think Mario, you might be the best person to take that one.
I think from an inspiration perspective, absolutely. I think there are two aspects to the design. On one hand, the brand colors, where for sure we were inspired by the rainbow colors. But what we tried to do, we tried to create something that is fresh and new and doesn't necessarily just represent the rainbow, but a whole range, so that it can be used for different in different aspects, for different messages, and also to create a really clear, distinct color and visual identity for the different brand pillars. But when it comes to images or references of people, then for sure, of course, we looked at a whole range of queer images and visuals from around the world, different backgrounds, different cultures, different identities, in order to represent everybody.
Yes, and I think to add to that, the new logo with the circle or the new and improved globe, if you will. So half of it, the bottom half, reflects a solid foundation, reflecting 32 years of legacy that Outright has, and the top portion with the stripes of there's reminiscent of the rainbow effect as well, but also the symbol of radiating strength, celebration. I think so those were some of the things that we tried to incorporate into it also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other questions? So Daniel's question's been answered live. I should say also, Mario, I was just thinking again about the better tagline.
Yeah.
Just this week, we celebrate Barbados decriminalizing consensual same-sex relations and striking down discriminatory legislation, and essentially the third Eastern Caribbean country to do so this year. And in November, Singapore Parliament also voted to repeal Section 377, in essence, decriminalizing sex between two men. And yesterday, we celebrate President Biden signing the Respect for Marriage Act in the US. So meanwhile, in other parts of the world, it's like LGBTIQ people might face persecution and violence, or might even have to leave their countries, right, to across their country borders to seek safety. So what we can do is to have better laws, better safety, better policies, better government, so LGBTQ people everywhere can have better lives. And again, it's like just reflecting on just events from this week. I'm just thinking how apt our new and improved tagline is again. I think we don't have other questions that are live that are asked on the Q&A, so we can close out. Daniel's just had a comment in the chat. Thank you for that, Daniel. Yeah, we love it too. So thank you for the positive feedback.
Brilliant.
Yes, so thank you everyone for your time today and taking time to join this Out Summit session. Enjoy the rest of Out Summit. I think there's an extended program today, and then the Asia program starts tomorrow and the day after. So thank you again, everyone, for being part of this and joining us at this time. Cheers.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mario.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.